And essentially they like earn their place, earn their respect in the greater world population, communications, and everything like that. Um, Wherein, way back then, machines didn't exist and stuff, telephones. It was mostly messengers and mostly a lot of everybody looking down on each other, like everybody else is dumber than themselves and shit like that. Um, so then, is really, really broad, opens up the timeline of this planet's since since Genesis and stuff. And the big wonderful thing was there was already a lot of stuff here before Genesis. From the last time the planet was populated. And it'd be like things like marble stone coliseums that were there, and bridges that were like destroyed during the impact and all that. That's why it's such a popular and sustained theory. It was very populated as a planet, and then it was like this big asteroid came in and wiped everything out and stuff, and it just got nasty and ugly. But eventually that stuff deteriorated away as well, and already was slightly so. But they did stuff when they first started populating again and became human again, or whatever. Like, started cleaning up stuff, like, oh, there's just soot on it, like clean off the marble and shit like that. Eventually it's just gone. Just swallowed and stuff. But the ancient Greek civilization was part of ancient world. Inclusively and exclusively to say there were slightly giant people in proportion to the planet. They really weren't that big. They were pretty big though, and it's difficult to gauge people's size when you're not their size. So most of the people that kept records and stuff were like the size that we are right now. But yeah, like ancient Greeks and stuff from ancient world, from Mesopotamia, were also the ones who became giants and so on and so forth, and made Stonehenge and some other things around the European continent area. Russia was always this big icebox secret threshold that was like super duper shun everything away, and people really didn't want to go there for both reasons, stuff like that. But needless to say, how it panned out to like today and stuff. Giants bred back down, to proportion because no females would be that large. Mostly, I would venture to say, because they didn't want little people crawling inside of their vaginal cavities. Stuff like that is always the reason. They didn't want to walk around with big chastity belts on or anything like that. Let's see. Then there was a little bit of a dark age. Not really a very much dark age. It was pushed for as a dark age. It wasn't a dark age though. That was when Egypt became settled, and the Egyptian culture began. The ancient Egyptian culture, which was such a popular culture and civilization that it blew apart ancient world and completely baffled and askewed most people's minds about when the ancient world was compared to ancient Egypt. And then Egypt was so popular that it like over dominated beliefs and people's general word of mouth about when ancient world started. And the thing that the other civilizations that existed before did was they kept secrets from Egypt. They like dangled the piece of candy in Egypt's face, like, y'all are fucking ridiculous. But it was like the Greeks withheld information about geometry and math. The Indians around India. The Indians and the Chinese withheld information about way of life and population stability practices and basically law. The Americans withheld communication. The Americans really threw a wrench in the clock on them with holding back communications, because the Americans were the ones who had gone everywhere first. Most basically, it's like it's pre-Ice Age stuff. Let's see. There was one Ice Age before Egypt settled. And then it's cold outside. I gotta go in. And there was a smaller one before that. Which technically wouldn't really classify as a full-blown Ice Age. But it kind of counted or whatever. Basically, like I was saying, the other ancient civilizations totally withheld information from Egypt. Egypt was like all of the apprentices that, of course, as always, suddenly weren't up to par, weren't as learned as they needed to be, thought they were learned and more learned, and they thought that they could, skip past some of the learning levels and stuff, but like apprenticeship, they thought they could like skip past apprenticeship and stuff like that, and just like inherit. So they just inherit businesses and stuff and just like take them and shit. Anyway, what happened then was that, and this is like a really, really mixed up video. I'm like going back and forth through time and stuff. I need to do another one, but I'll put this one out there first. Things like masonry and smithing and it was actually called smelting, not smithing, but smithing became the popular term again. Smelting, masonry, they don't really use that one anymore. Farming, stuff like that. It just wasn't any longer available to them or whatever. A lot of things were no longer available, and the Egyptians, the way that Egypt formed as a civilization was like the 40 Thieves. And in all reality, yes, kind of like the Disney cartoons release of movies as a timeline kind of thing. It was really like that. Like Aladdin came out like really, really early in their list of cartoons and stuff. But like anyway, it was like the 40 Thieves, and it was basically that they were families that had been raising apprentices, basically, for like the masters of smelting, like making swords and shit, and masonry, building stuff, and they just revolted, stole as much as they could, and left and went to Egypt, and like they were like kind of like blow up the world kind of people at first or whatever, and that's where the whole volcano thing started and shit, and they really, really got their butts kicked as far as, being like psychologically played with and stuff. Great civilization though. There was a lot of, like, we're not just gonna like kill these people off kind of stuff going on. Basically what the idea was that the ancient civilizations and everything would, with this group which revolted, start them from like basics and really, really teach them that there's more than like just a linear reality to any mastery of any craft or population or anything like that. And they did this with the hieroglyphics, which was, taking them back to using pictures rather than linguistic scripts, rather than using characters or letters, and that was to like broad range perspective. And it's not really an easy way to develop a population either. But it would be like, okay, draw the eagle during this era of time, this time period. The eagle is